Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the most recent materials that I put together for distance learning. And I was pretty much really inspired in the sense of using a design thinking model as a way to help support students while they're learning at home. My district is implementing both online learning opportunities, but we also have packets available to students if that's the means of learning that best fits their needs. And so I was tasked to be part of the packet making process, but I wanted to eventually create something that helped our students dive a little bit deeper into a project like scenario. And so I fell upon the design thinking process as a great way to link that learning opportunity at home. And so when we're thinking about the design thinking process, we're thinking about the 5 steps of design thinking. So the first step that we have is empathize. And so students would be exposed to some type of story that would ultimately drive their emotions towards an individual or a situation. From there, the students would dive in a little bit deeper and really define what the problem is or what type of issues are the individuals going through so that they could eventually ideate some possible solutions for the individuals. And this is very much so like a brainstorming process. From there, after they've created some different ideas as to how to support the individuals based on their needs or their problems, they would have the opportunity to create some type of a prototype of what their solution was. And I'll go into a little bit deeper explanation of how I also wanted to incorporate some universal design learning choices within that prototype build. And last but not least, the students would actually test out their prototype, whether that is if they built something, maybe they wanted to go ahead and actually have it work in the situation needed, and or just maybe sharing it with another individual to get some feedback. So if we go over into the shared folder, which I'm going to be sharing with everyone, you'll notice that they're broken up between kinder through 8th grade. And I followed a pretty standard template when creating these. The one thing I will mention is over time, after I started to kind of work on these different lessons, I ultimately just really knew that I needed to cut down the amount of text that I was providing to the students. So be flexible. Less is more in this case scenario when we're talking about virtual learning at home. So because I wanted this to be somewhat packet based, obviously it's going to look like a packet unit, and it follows all of the 5 steps of the design learning process. And so all of the articles that I have pulled from are either from Newsella or ReadWorks. And so that gave consistency of the source that I was pulling from for the reading materials. So you'll notice that the first section, we're talking about empathize. So students will then read this article here, and that will allow them to tap into some type of problem maybe an individual has, or just exposing them to a current topic within society. And a lot of the articles that I used were focused around the coronavirus. So once they're done reading, then they're going to go ahead and reflect on their reading based on who's in the article and what do they think matters to them, so that they're really honing in on the empathy section of design thinking. From there, the next day, they can reread the article for a close read experience and then really dive in to find out what is the problem, create a statement that reflects the problem, and then diving in a little bit deeper as to what other things might we need to know about the problem. And from there, they can trickle all of those pieces of information down into what are their top 3 needs. And that is kind of a really nice connector from empathizing to defining what might this individual need. Ideating is the next step in the system, and this is where students can just really be as creative as possible. No idea is a bad idea, and so really generating different thoughts about either products or scenarios or even thinking stems. How are these individuals going to solve their problem? And from there, trickling those down into 3 ideas as to how a problem might be solved, whether that's actually creating a product or creating a situation to solve a problem. The next part would be their prototype. And so their prototype is ultimately a place where they get to design, create, maybe build the idea that they came up with. And so I wanted to give some voice and choice because obviously we know that not all students have access to technology during these time periods, and or is that for their type of learnings, is that the best way for them to express themselves through technology? Maybe not. Maybe they want to write a paper. Maybe they want to draw or design an advertisement representing the product or problem solving idea that they came up with. So then after they build, which obviously they could have some time on that, then we would go through the test mode and really honing in as to what was the design, its purpose, how was it created and how was it developed and how will it help? And then this is a great opportunity for students to share what they've created, whether that takes place during a Google Meet when you have your students with you virtually, or maybe they're sharing their product with a family member, or maybe just sharing in Google Classroom and having a Google slide deck with a reflection and a picture of what their prototype was. So these are all available for you all to use as you would like. Feel free to modify and or change anything to best fit the needs of you as a teacher and also your students. Thanks.